people and the culture of a company, mainly because TikToks are designed to entertain and not do much else. So, let's say you have a product that typically, is viewed in a very serious manner. If you want to lighten the mood, so to speak, a little bit, TikTok could be a very good way to do it. But an important thing to note about TikTok and the consumer behavior on TikTok is that it's not very good at all at converting viewers to customers. And at this point, at this stage in the game with TikTok, I wouldn't dare use TikTok as a primary marketing angle. There's far too many unknowns with the consumer behavior on TikTok. So when it comes to how you're going to spend your time and how you're going to spend your money, TikTok is probably not the way to go on its own just yet. However, as a companion to other marketing efforts, I think that TikTok is a great way to get your brand out there.
Question.
The next thing. Oh, what we got?
So someone mentioned that they are thinking about using TikTok. Hey, Sharice, but they need more entertaining content. Do you have any tips on how to start, how to ease your way into TikTok as far as like building content?
So when it comes to not just TikTok, but for anything, when you're looking at making more entertaining or engaging content, there's not really an equation. There is a bit of talent involved when it comes to doing that. So with that said, I think it's always helpful to bring other people in, to put more than one mind together to figure out what you're doing. It's also really, really important when it comes to TikTok and other media, or other social media posts in general, like short videos. Show it to someone else before you post it. Show someone and say, do you like this? Are you entertained by this? Especially when it comes to TikTok, I would show it to as many people in person as you could before you post it, just because the entertainment value is going to be so subjective. One thing I would do is also keep in mind that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If there's something out there that, like, there's a trend going on TikTok that you can rip off and do the same thing, there's nothing wrong with that, because now at least you have a baseline for the entertainment value for that. But it's kind of hard to teach people, or impossible necessarily possibly to teach people how to be creative. But the thing that I tell people all the time is don't think about it too hard. If you think about it too hard, you're probably not going to do a very good job. And your gut feeling is probably the right one. So I'm sorry that that's not a bit more concrete, but don't think about it too hard. That's the key. And keep, I see another question here. Can you be serious on TikTok? I wouldn't go as far as to say no. But that's kind of not the point of TikTok. TikTok is really designed to be really fun and light. However, there are certain situations where I've seen people being serious. There are like some faith-based initiatives that utilize TikTok just because they're short, quick, easily digestible videos. But if you want to be serious on TikTok, that's probably not the best thing to use, just because that's just not what it's designed for. So also really important when it comes to TikTok is that the average user age is much lower than a lot of other things. But with TikTok has a large percentage of what we call orphan content, where it's content that is created on that platform and is moved completely to a different platform. So you don't necessarily have to be bound to the audience that is available on TikTok alone, because you can bring that video over to Facebook or even YouTube, LinkedIn, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Any of the other platforms, you can bring that content over. That's actually a great question. Thank you. All right, so LinkedIn, you sell yourself. LinkedIn is a great place to be serious. LinkedIn is social media in a suit and tie. It's where you want to shine as a professional. This is where you can put your entire resume in all of its glory. When people are looking to interact with you professionally, this is probably where they're going to go. And as far as marketing on LinkedIn, these are the kind of people that you're going to be marketing to. Typically, they're going to be professionals. Typically, they're going to be a lot of business owners. So if you're doing a lot of business to business transactions, LinkedIn is probably going to be the way to go for you. And then we have YouTube, which I, of course, have a lot of experience with. When you're selling on YouTube, this is really the platform where you're going to sell through influencers, and you're going to sell through video ads, like commercials that are going to run before a YouTube video. We have a question from Rochelle. This session is really helpful in knowing where to focus. Oh, well, thank you very much. That was a question. That was just some feedback. I appreciate it. So with YouTube, you're going to, if you make a YouTube channel for your business, typically this is going to be you demonstrating your product or service. That's going to be where this is going to shine. But don't expect for a minute for your business typically to get any real traction using YouTube, or to convert people into customers by you putting out your own content on YouTube. That's just not the way YouTube works. That's not what the audiences are typically there for. If you want to hit people with an ad really quickly on YouTube before a video, this is where YouTube is going to shine. Yes, Christelle?
Hey, we have a question from Dr. Mosen.
Okay.
He asked, did you use any Telegram platforms? Do you use any Telegram platforms?
Me personally, no. No. And
have any tips on that?
Not really, because that's just not. I'm not the greatest person to really talk about that, and I don't want to do anything in error. The things that I'm talking about right now are the things that are proven. They're the easiest and they're the most cost effective. So that's really my focus. I recommend everything that I'm talking about are the things that I recommend, and the things that I'm not talking about are things that either I haven't had much luck with in practice, or that can be prohibitively expensive or not have great results for startup businesses. So maybe that gives a little bit of context there. But the most important thing is, when you're creating any of this stuff, is that you have to tell your story. The whole point of any of this, the whole point of marketing to a customer, is to tell your story. Tell your story about your product. Tell your story about how great it is. Tell your story about who you are and what you do, so that they want to open their wallets and give it to you for whatever it is that you're doing or you're selling. And as long as you're doing that, you're headed in the right direction. You have to remember that social media marketing, it's a skill. It's a skill that over time it gets better and it gets easier. A lot of people, they get discouraged very early in the game because they're not getting the engagement that they were expecting or that they were looking for, even after they've paid. But if you're not getting that, even if you're paying for those ads, then you have to just go back and re-examine what you're doing and how you're messaging. You go back to those demographic targeting points and then look at who are you talking to? Is there a better way to resonate with that audience? Is there a better way to talk to them, whether it's through an influencer Or, are you talking to those customers where they are online? Do your demographic targeting points match up with the individual social media platforms? Okay. For example, if you're trying to talk to people 40 years old, let's say, and you're on Instagram, you're on the wrong social media platform. That's how come you're not getting the results, because the people that you want to talk to are on Facebook. So there's sort of an equation to this, but sort of not. Everything that I said is really an overview, a generalization, sort of a best practice for all of these things. But there are always wild cards, depending on what your business is, depending on what you're selling and how you're selling what you do. You can take these things and mix and match them. This isn't an exact science, but you can get it very, very exact on your own. And as you learn your audience and your product and your business vision online. So that's what I've got for this. Normally we do a Q&A here on the end, and I see a couple of questions here. Can you gain traction without spending money on a premium account on LinkedIn? You can. It's just going to be a lot more work to do that. With any of these platforms, if you pay, they're really helping you push content out. They're helping you push these things to specific people. But you can always get traction and get major traction without spending money. You're just going to have to do a lot more work on your own. I just found out that Netflix sort of fabricated their startup story. Do you recommend keeping your story as truthful as possible? Yeah. You want to be truthful, because the internet is forever. So if you lie and you suddenly become a lot bigger than you expected to, somebody could call you out on that, and that trust barrier that we talked about at the beginning is going to move a whole lot closer to you. So, there's beauty in the chaos. So, even if you don't have the coolest startup story in the world, just tell it like it is. The whole reason I started doing what I'm doing right now, TGYMT Media, is because I got laid off of like 8 jobs, and I just couldn't. The job market just wasn't for me. I had to figure it out on my own. And the thing that I knew how to do was eat food and talk about it, and people trusted how I felt about what I was eating. Like, this is how this all started. I don't have the coolest startup story in the world. It has to come with me, getting married and then being unemployed 6 times shortly after. It's not glamorous, but it is what it is. And now, I look at my startup story with a lot of pride, because I look at, it wasn't that interesting or that great, but it's turned into something that I'm definitely proud of now. How do you become more confident in posting and putting yourself out there? So this is one of those things where public speaking in particular is most people's biggest fear. Public speaking doesn't scare me. What does scare me? Talking like this on a camera where I can't interact with people and see them. But how you become more confident is you kind of have to understand that if people are watching you, they want to see what you're doing and they want to hear what you're saying. So there's nothing to really be afraid of in that respect. The other part to understand is that people kind of don't care. If you go and you hop on camera and you do a funny dance on camera, in 5 minutes, people probably have forgotten entirely. So it's not like by you putting something out there that maybe just completely bombs and people don't care or interact with it, it's not the end of the world. Big deal. People just didn't like that. Don't do that again. So, this kind of comes down to what I said before. Don't think too hard about it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What are some tips? Because I know that oftentimes when people are starting, they've created their idea of what problem that they want to solve,
Mm-hmm.
and they pretty much figure out, because a lot of people are social media, they want to be there, right? I also appreciated your tips about like once you go there, like the algorithm forces you to keep doing it. But like if you are not, well versed in that space, what are some tips you have, or possibly what is a book that you recommend or a podcast you recommend listening to help you get started in that space if you're not familiar with it at all?
Oh boy, that's tough. That's a really tough question. Thanks a lot, Christelle. I appreciate it.
That's what I do. I just
Yeah. So really, there aren't any books or podcasts that I personally recommend, just because pretty much all the ones I've seen, this is anecdotal. If anybody knows of any that you recommend, please let us know in the chat. Just because usually those types of things, they have their own motives usually. And I found that a lot of the recommendations just don't work, or they make it seem a lot easier than it really is. While this stuff isn't rocket science or super hard, it's also not easy. But the easiest, I guess, in this case, way to sort of get your feet wet and to kind of give yourself some direction is to find your competitors and see what they're doing, and look at what your competitors are doing, and then say, okay, how could they do what they're doing better? And then apply that to your business. That's going to be really the best way, just because the things you see are going to be, the actual practice, and not conceptual or something, that's on a piece of paper. And then you can also look at their audience and see how their audience interacted or, looked at, the reach. You'd have to use another tool like, socialblade.com is a good one, where you can actually analyze what's going on behind the scenes on a social media page. I use that mainly for YouTube, because it gives you all the data. It even tells you how much money that someone is likely making on a YouTube channel. But with other social media platforms, they'll give you that data as well. That would really be my personal recommendation for that, Christelle.
All right, I have another question.
Okay.
You talked about influencer campaigns. Let's say someone is local, right, and they are offering a product, like how important is it to do influencer marketing?
Well, okay. So I personally think it's very important, if not critical, and you should call up your local hometown influencer at TGYMT Media. But I think if you have a product that lends itself well to an influencer talking about it and talking their audience into purchasing, I think you always want to do it. If you can, then do it. Um, it, there's literally no reason not to, unless it's cost prohibitive in some way. In my particular area, the companies that I deal with tend to be fairly large, so I am a drop in the bucket when it comes to a small brick and mortar business, especially a startup one. Those funds may or may not be there. So depending on who you're working with from an influencer perspective, you may need to find somebody that's into a trade, or that's into, in the case of, me being in, dealing with restaurants, the restaurants that couldn't necessarily afford to have me come and do a review or a commercial or video, sometimes it was appropriate for them to give me a gift card, which then I would use that gift card for one of my other ventures, to give away as a prize or something that has tangible value to me. But if you can do it, you always want to.
Awesome. We have a question from the audience, Chris Rice. He says, someone who struggles with consistently posting on social media, what recommendations do you have to build that consistency? What recommendations do you have for them to build that consistency and grow their audience organically?
So truthfully, the answer is stop doing that. You have to treat social media as a critical business operation. Just like you would nurture anything else in your business on a day-to-day basis, you have to treat your social media just like that. You treat it like another storefront of your business. You know, you wouldn't leave your business for days at a time. You don't need to leave your social media for days at a time. You have to tend to it like the critical piece of business infrastructure that it is. And sometimes this can come down to you just have to force yourself to do it, because it's just that important. This is one of those things where there's not really it's a willpower thing. You have to just you just have to do it, because many times the profitability of your business depends on it, especially if your competitors are really utilizing social media much better than you. That can make the difference between you being a viable player in your industry and not. I see a thing here. What are my thoughts on audio versus video versus words blogging? That's really going to depend on what you're selling. The audio part, those are going to be some very specific business models that are going to thrive in that audio space, like a podcast. That's going to be real specific, to the point that I think you're going to know if something like that is going to work for you. I actually can't even think of anything off the top of my head. Christelle, if you think of anything in particular, you let me know on that one. Video is king. You always want to be using video if you can. If you can make every post that you make have a video, do it. The second to that is going to be photo, but video is always the best. Most social media platforms view YouTube as a competitor in the video delivery space. So all these platforms really are interested in delivering video content to their users. So when you post video content, all the algorithms, especially Facebook, are really going to be preferential to pushing video content out. Why? Because they get to run an ad at some point at the beginning or during that video. So there is a profitability angle for them. So whenever you can use video, 100%, you always want to use it. And then when it comes to words and blogging, that's also going to be some fairly specific business models. When you're looking at blogging, you have to make sure that whatever you're selling has an appropriate following for that. So you're going to need people that are typically going to trend a little bit older as well. But you're going to need people that are wanting to consume large amounts of information and large detailed amounts of information. And then you're also going to want to make sure that you have enough people to justify the extra expense and the extra time investment that having something like a blog takes. Because it's almost like you're creating your own social media platform, which arguably blogging is a bit unnecessary in 2020, as you could utilize your Facebook page as a blog if you really wanted to.
I have a question from TK.
Okay.
That's our new friend from Augusta. Hey.
Hey there.
Okay, so it says, I appreciate your tip about paid ads. Once you boost, it will never be the same. Never considered, however, have noticed that. I will always boost events I host and sponsor, but no longer see the traction on regular posts. I hate I'll skip that part. I'm just joking. But she understands, although she doesn't like Facebook, she understands the necessary evil. Do you have any ideas on how to increase your followers on Facebook business page without boosting?
So the key with building an audience on any social media platform is that you have to make people be interested in seeing what you have coming next. That's the key. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful content in the world. It doesn't have to be necessarily the most well thought out content in the world, but it has to be content that people want to continue to see and to interact with. Um, there is one thing that you should never, ever, ever do under any circumstances. I don't care how attractive it looks. I don't care how good the ad that you saw on Facebook or Fiverr or any of these other websites that do it are. Never, ever, ever, ever pay for followers. Don't do it. The social media platforms know it when they see it. And you can, the worst case scenario, you lose your social media platform altogether. Sort of the best case scenario with that is that you have permanently decreased reach and they let it stay. And then, we talked about, paid posts, reducing that amount of reach that you can have with an audience. Buying followers will do it 10 times more. So I cannot stress enough. Be interesting. Never, ever, ever pay for followers. There's a lot of information out there that says that's not a big deal or it's not going to hurt you, but I can guarantee you it will. I've had clients that it took them years to recover from trying to purchase followers.
All right. I have a question from Chris Rice. He
Yep.
says, do you recommend hashtagging consistently in posts, and does it hashtag in the post or statement, or hashtag them at the end of our posts?
So the only difference, so the algorithm treats the hashtags the same regardless of where they are, pretty much for all of your social media platforms. I think when you use a hashtag in the middle of a post, what you're really doing is changing the tone of that post. You're making that tone a bit more casual. Versus hashtagging at the end. If you're doing something that's a bit more formal, you maintain that formal tone. So I think it comes down to, how are you trying to make the viewer feel? If you want it to be a bit more casual, hashtag in the middle of the post. If it doesn't matter or it's more serious, put it at the end. As far as hashtagging consistently, anything you can do that you do consistently or you do on all of your posts is going to be better. If for no other reason than if you have the same hashtag at the end of each post, it makes it very easy for a new viewer, let's say a year from now, to go back and see posts related to that hashtag. From a perspective of categorizing your posts, you definitely want to keep it consistent for sure.
Awesome. So there were no more questions, but one good idea that people were sharing in chat is the power of scheduling posts if you're busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Scheduling posts, it takes a lot off your plate. And actually, I'm glad you said that because I should add that to this whole thing here. But it's the kind of scheduling posts allow you to nurture that social media platform on a daily basis without having to sit in front of it on a daily basis. So if you schedule your posts, I recommend to startup businesses in particular to sit down on one day and make all your posts for a week or more. Ideally, with a lot of social media management sites, you can manage up to, I think, 90 days at a time. And you can set all these posts. Your social media is on autopilot, and then you have posts that are going out automatically, and then you can fill in with posts related to what's going on right at this moment, even if you already have scheduled posts. So I definitely recommend it. Make just a social media day, schedule all your posts, and then just let her rip.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words or thoughts for us today?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out and checking out my presentation today. I think the how to get a hold of me is somewhere, but on my TGYMT social media. Anybody that has any questions about social media stuff, or if you think your business needs a little help with the social media, please reach out on social media on TGYMT Media. Said how many times can I say media? And I'd love to help and see what you're doing and see how I can help you use your social media more effectively.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the session. That was a nice presentation. It was on fire. Thank you so much,
Thank you for
Robert.
having me.
Yes. So, guys, we're going to take a break for an hour. If you want to go get some coffee at Z Beans, I ran over there right quick earlier to get me some coffee and enjoyed a 20% off discount. So you
Hey,
can awesome. Or you can go later at the Fall Line Brewery and enjoy a beer for 50% off. We are going to open up after lunch with the phenomenal Dr. Dr. Eric Thomas, aka E, the hip hop preacher. If you're excited about it, I want to hear it in the chat. Who's looking forward to coming back at 1 o'clock for a second keynote of the day?
I
So
am.
I am too. Oh
I
my
know.
goodness,
Yeah, I'm really
you have
excited
no
about that.
idea.
Yeah.
So during the break, what I'm gonna do is put on one of his videos so I could pump myself up and come back and be ready to introduce him so that we could get started. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Awesome. We will see you guys later. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.